Bonjour mes amis, et bienvenue au Pendu dans le Cercle de Lune. Hello friends, if this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you probably already know by my attempt at a French introduction that this is my series in which I use Cercle de Marseille adjacent or antique Italian decks to help me unpack the larger spread that I read earlier in the week. And these days, my larger spread is based on a Lenormand deck. Well, I've started my deep year-long deep dive into the Lenormand system. That's what I'm trying to say. I can speak English sometimes. My year-long deep dive into the Lenormand system. I started that already. I've gone through a whole lunar cycle, and we're starting a new lunar cycle. So I've switched out my decks for the tarot and the Lenormand cards for that spread. But because I'm focusing on Lenormand now, for this response video, I've been going through a cycle of, and this was a cycle that was selected by you, my wonderful co-creating viewers here, that I switch out between TDM and TDM style decks and other systems. So I'll do a traditional TDM and then a Smith-Waite, and then a TDM adjacent, and then maybe a Thoth-based deck, and then an antique Italian deck, and then maybe a continental tarot deck, and then we go back again to traditional TDM, and then we go back to Smith-Waite, like that. Yeah. So we're at the Cercle de Marseille adjacent part of that cycle, and we have a spread already laid out. So I'll show you the deck. I'll talk about the decks and the cards a little bit later, but before we get into this reading, I want to remind you that this is a response video. This is a response to the spread I read earlier in the week. So if you have not seen that video, the way I read these cards will not make full sense, I don't think. Because, again, the question that I ask every week is, what is the central message of the last Lenormand spread? So if you have not seen that, we always read cards in response to the question, in response to a situation. So the question is really directed towards that previous spread. And if you have not seen that spread, this spread will make less sense, I think. So I will put a card up here for you to click on and go watch that video if you haven't done so already. Now, just in case you have watched that video, but you watched it in bits and pieces, and that's quite all right, you are very welcome to watch those videos in bits and pieces. That's fine. So you watch them in bits and pieces. It's been a while. You don't really remember everything that you heard. You might want a refresher. So let me give you a little bit of a refresher, a little bit. What we got there was a very positive Lenormand spread, a spread of abundance and stability and hope, and focusing both on our regular jobs and perhaps our side hustle or our heart jobs if they're different, if they're the same job. Things of endurance, all very wonderful. But the title of that video, if you recall, was Standing in Your Own Way. Because though the Lenormand part of that spread was very, I think, positive, the tarot cards on the sides gave us a very different picture. They gave us the picture of us focusing on things that prevent us from doing that wonderful stuff that is possible, which was indicated by the Lenormand spread. Worried about past failures, about financial or resource insecurity, being anxious, all of the cards from the tarot portion of that spread, which I read within elemental dignities, which means that, for example, for fire, water being in the fire part of that spread, being ill-dignified, the water drowns out the fire burns up the water. Yeah? All of the potential energy is drained out, or at least a good portion of it is drained out. So we're standing in our own way. And so I asked the question, what is the central message of that Lenormand spread? We want confirmation perhaps, or maybe even the message of, so what do we do? I gave some ideas last week, not last week, in the last video. But let's see what this spread is going to teach us. What is this spread going to tell us is the way to get through this perhaps? What is the central message of that spread? Because I think that spread was giving us a sense of the state of things. And I think this spread is going to give us the way through, if that makes sense. We got the map, now this spread is going to show us the way through, to navigate that map that we had from the last video. Am I making sense? I hope I'm making sense. If I am making sense, please let me know in the comments below. If I am not making sense, please let me know in the comments below. I will try my best to rectify. Okay? Okay, so we got the cards. First, what I will do is I will show you the whole spread. And just in case you are new here, I'll just tell you what those parts are and what the names of the decks are, etc. And then we'll break the spread down into its two major chunks, and we'll read those two major chunks together. Okay? So friends, here's the spread. So what did you think of those two decks? You noticed there were two different decks, right? Those two decks. What do you think? Well, okay, so this is spooky season. Yeah? This will come out before Halloween, I'm sure, before Samhain. And so, and because this was the Terre de Marseille adjacent part of the cycle for this series, I decided to pull out these two decks. Now, I have one more deck that could be considered pretty creepy for Terre de Marseille adjacent cards. It's the Terre des Ambiguïtés, produced by Artisan Tarot. Wonderful deck. Beautiful deck. And just creepy enough, I think, for Halloween or the spooky season. But I haven't used this deck in a long time, so I was drawn to use this deck. And I'm sometimes a little bit gun shy, if you mind my saying that, with this deck, because some of the cards are a little bit confusing. Yeah? Fortunately, none of those confusing cards came out, but some of the, especially the swords cards, are a little confusing when it comes to number, because there is no number on the minor arcana. They don't have the numbers printed on the minor arcana. And sometimes the intestines on the swords cards are supposed to be swords, and sometimes they're just decorative elements, and sometimes it's hard to tell what's a decorative element and what's a replacement for a sword in this deck. So, challenging, but fortunately, like I said, none of the challenging cards came out this time. Woohoo! Now, just in case, okay, so what are the decks? The tarot cards that you saw on the top of the spread are from a very creepy deck called the Terre de Marseille by Paul Cut. And it's available, it's mass market. I'll put a link in the description box below. I'll probably put a link to the Amazon, maybe the Amazon France site, because I think that's where I got my deck. They ship internationally. But it's available. It's a wonderful deck. I'll show you the backs right now. That's what the backs of the cards look like. They're like skulls on the backs. Yeah, it's kind of I don't know. It's a gray, sky bluish. It's an odd color for the back, but it works well for this deck. So that was that. The Tarot de Marseille by Polkat. And again, link in the description box below. The oracle cards you saw at the bottom were from the Zammer Twins Oracle by Patrick Valenza at Deviant Moon. And I'll put a link to his shop in the description box below. This is also available. It's an indie deck, but it is available. And so you'll have links down there. Now, no, there's nothing more to say. I don't need to tell you anything more. I don't think it's time to break the spread down into its bits, right? So what I will do is I will show you the cards from the tarot deck first, then we'll talk about those, and then I'll remind you with a photo of the two oracle cards and we'll talk about those. Okay? So friends, here are the tarot cards from the Tarot de Marseille by Polkat. Those are the cards again, right? And before we get into it, I just have to say, I really love having this small table in front of me for recording because it has made things so much more convenient and comfortable for me. So I'm just happy over this. And I got crystals here in front of me. I've got my little aquamarine. I've got a little bit of smoky quartz. I've got a humongous rose quartz palm stone here in front of me to help with my grounding, my communication, and my heart. Yes? Okay. And our hearts need a little bit of help for this spread especially. And you saw, from left to right, we had the Empress, the Judgment card, the Ace of Swords, and the King of Coins. So we had two major arcana, right? Judgment and the Empress. And we had two minors, one swords, one coins. Now, if I were specifically reading for elemental dignities, the earth and the coin, the earth of the coins and the air of the swords are ill-dignified, but I'm not really reading for that in this spread. I wasn't planning on reading for that, so that's not where we're going to go. You may be wondering why there are 4 cards in this spread. If you know me, you know that I read Tarot de Marseille adjacent, and Antique Italian decks directionally. Which means I look for the line of sight. Yes? And if there's a very strong line of sight going in one direction or the other, and that line of sight goes off the spread, then I'll often draw another card to see where that line of sight is, what that line of sight is focused on, where that line of sight is going. So we had from the left to the right, we had, okay, so everything is cross directions here, yeah? This is my left hand and it's on your right side. This is my right hand and it's on your left hand side. And so I'm reading cross-directionally in various ways right now at one time, and I'm trying to course correct here. So, you saw my right, on my right hand side, which would be for you here, right? We had the King of Coins looking this way. Then we had the Ace of Swords. Then we had the Judgment card, and the angel on that Judgment card was looking this way, right? So I was wondering, so we have got the two figures with big faces. Now at the bottom of the Judgment card, there are people looking many different ways, but the two main figures with the two big faces all looking this way, both looking this way. So I was wondering, well, what are they looking at? Yeah, the king's looking at the Ace of Swords, but what about that angel on the Judgment card? Where is he, she, it looking at? They, what are they looking at? Yeah, so I drew another card, the Empress. So that's where that's where the thoughts are going. That's where our minds are going. And we're going to start off in the right-hand side with the King of Cups. I'm sorry, the King of Coins. And you see here a very fashionably decked out king here, a very young looking king, I might say, but a very fashionably decked out king, maybe of, to me, I get the feeling of King Henry VIII or Queen Elizabeth period king, people, courtier, yeah? And the two coins are on the eyes of the king figure, right? Making us think of things like death. Although this king figure does not look like he is lying in a coffin, this king looks very upright, but has two coins on his eyes, which makes me think of death, right? Just creepy enough for the spooky season, I think. Yeah, and a very young-looking king to me. Who is the King of Coins? Well, first off, we are all the King of Coins. Whether we're in a male body, a female body, a cis body, a trans body, an intersex body, doesn't matter. We're all kings, we're all queens, we're all knights, we're all pages. We have all of that. Yes? So we're all kings of coins. But what are the characteristics of the King of Coins? Well, the King of Coins is the king of abundance and prosperity. We have that under our belt. Our belts. Yeah, it's the king of security and success. This is the king that can be a provider and protector of others, a provider for and protector of others. It could be an industrialist or a business person, even a successful farmer, according to some people. So if that's you, if you are an industrialist, if you are a business person and an employer of other people, that could be that aspect of you. But the king earns comfortably and pleasurably. Now, the king enjoys the earning of money, enjoys doing the things that earn the money with confidence and security. They're cautious, right? They are prudent, they're cautious, but they're optimistic for the future. They have an optimistic vision of what is possible. So they're not cautious like, I'm not going to do anything there, I'm scared. It's just, they're cautious. They want to maintain what they have while having their optimistic view of what they can do in the future. They look for new things to do, new achievements, while still maintaining what they have, their current assets. They maintain what they have, and they do the new thing as well. Cautiously, not recklessly, because they want to maintain. They conserve what they have and reach out and do more. Does that make sense? Yes? And this is an important aspect of self, and I think that aspect of self was very strongly emphasized in the Lenormand Spread. So all of those characteristics from that Lenormand Spread really seem to point to this one card here from the Tarot. So what do we want to do as this embodiment of the King of Coins? Well, we want to do the next thing. We want to look at the Ace of Swords. Seen among entrails galore. Yes? So, the Ace of Swords, I love this card. This is the card of breakthrough, of new clarity, of new ideas. Allow ourselves that enlightened moment of enlightenment, right? Of inspiration, but not inspiration like from the gut, but inspiration from the mind. Right? That inspiration from the gut, I think, is more of a fire card. Yeah, the Ace of Wands, that kind of inspiration of, I want to do something. This is the inspiration of, oh, I could do this, right? That, oh yeah, I get it. Inspiration. Yeah? We have the intellectual potential to do that. We have the mental capacity to do that. And that realization, our intellect, can move into action, which I think is what we want to do, according to the Lenormand Spread we just looked at. right? We want to move into action. We want to be determined and discerning. We don't want to do stupid stuff because we're still the king of coins, right? We want to be prudent, cautious, and optimistic. So we move forward, we get that realization, we move forward with that idea, that inspiration, that intellectual inspiration, determinedly, discerningly, but not recklessly, right? And interestingly for me, when I arrange my Tarot de Marseille decks, I arrange my Tarot de Marseille decks a little different than I arrange my Smith-Waite decks, or actually my other tarot decks. I arrange these differently. For me, in the Tarot de Marseille system, because the way I learned it, I know, the way I learned it is not necessarily meaningful, but the way I learned it was that we start off with the wands, like I would other decks, and then the cups, like I would for other decks, but then the coins, and then the swords. Yeah? For me, the fire, the water, and then the earth, and then the air come out. That's the way I arrange my decks for Tarot de Marseille. For other decks, I arrange them the fire, water, air, then earth. Earth being the last. But for me, for some reason, I learned Tarot de Marseille in a different way, and so the swords are last. And so, the King of Coins being the last card of the coin suit, then the Ace of Swords being the first card of the sword suit, they come right after each other in my ordering of the decks. So that's interesting because that's where the King of Coins is looking. The King of Coins is looking at the Ace of Swords when I put my decks in order and here in this spread. I just think that's cool. So then we got, what is that new idea? What is, or where does that new idea come from? Well, let's see. Perhaps it comes from the Judgment card, right? And you see here the angel. Now, when I look at this card up close, I see that the angel has a beard and the angel is holding a horn. When I look at the card from far away, what I kind of see, what it looks like to me is that the angel doesn't have a beard, but the angel is holding a handkerchief or a cloth over their nose and mouth, like something smells bad. I know that's bizarre, but that's often my first impression. I don't see the horn. What I see is the arm holding a cloth over the angel's face. Like again, something stinks around here. But so that's not what this is. The angel is blowing a horn. The angel has a beard. And the angel is pointing down towards this figure who is crying, right? No, I'm sorry, this figure. This figure who is crying. And the figure on the other side of the person with their back to us, yeah, this person is also crying. But you'll also notice that the figure right here on the edge is not crying. They look like they're in a pretty happy, good mood. They might even be laughing and pointing. Like, that's what I get from that. So we got two people crying. We got one person pointing and laughing. We don't see what the person with their back to us is doing. But it really looks like the perhaps male figure on the right is the one that's being pointed out by the angel, and maybe that's the one who's going to go away. I don't know. I don't know what this is trying to say. But I do know it's trying to say something, that someone and something is being called out, and it might be uncomfortable. But that's just this deck. In other decks for Tarot de Marseille, the people are not crying, they're there praying, right? Here we got crying people. This is the card for reflection. Now looking within, hearing the call from Spirit for me, the awakening from the dead. I don't know why, maybe they're tears of joy. Maybe they are tears of joy, I don't know. They don't look very happy to me. But it's the awakening. It's also a call for honesty. To be honest with ourselves. To stop lying to ourselves. Whether we're lying to ourselves in a positive or a negative way. We lie to ourselves in negative ways too. Yeah, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I can't do what I want to do. We're lying to ourselves when we say that. Yeah, so there's also that kind of lying to us, ourselves. We want honesty. It could also be the irresistible desire, which I think is interesting here, because the king is looking with optimism. He has this inspiration, this new idea, wants to perhaps put that new idea into action, and maybe it's the irresistible desire to follow that. Maybe it's the emergence of something that's been buried from within. Maybe that's what the new idea is. Maybe the new idea is coming from either within, that something that's been buried, that we've pushed aside for too long, maybe, and it's like, oh yeah. Or maybe it's something, an inspiration from Spirit, which doesn't have to come from above. It can also come from within, right? So it could be a spiritual awakening which gives us the idea, or it could be something that we've been ignoring or neglecting for a long time, and that brings us the inspiration to do something, the awakening of consciousness, right? An enlightenment of sorts. And what is that enlightenment? What is that enlightenment pointing us towards? What is it moving us in the direction of? It's moving us in the direction of this Empress, right? And of this whole deck, this Empress, who is, granted, a little cross-eyed, except for that, this Empress is pretty much a normie Empress considering this deck. Yeah? Not much really creepy about her, except for perhaps that slight cross-eyedness, which, I'm sorry, cross-eyedness is not creepy. I've had friends who have either one wandering eye or our eyes do not align as other people's eyes align, and that they're not creepy. Yeah, they are not creepy. So I see nothing creepy about this Empress, and actually the way that it doesn't look like her scepter is glowing there. I think it's this wonderful radiance here of power. She's the figure of fertility and creativity and abundance. And that whole spread, I think, that we looked at from the Lenormand was pointing in the direction of abundance, right? Of protection and care, which we got from the King of Coins, being able to protect, provide for other people, care for other people. But now in a very warm, fertile, creative way, with abundance, right? Production and beauty. Maybe even irrational creativity, but we are starting from a very rational place with the Ace of Swords. Maybe that will lead us to the irrational creativity that's also possible. Yeah, our vital impulse of growth and creativity. So that's where this spread seems to be pointing, yeah? We come at it with our sense of abundance, and we move into abundance again through this breakthrough idea, or an awakening of sorts through the Ace of Swords, and then again through the Judgment card. So that Ace of Swords moment of inspiration of, which will move us into action, could be an inner spiritual awakening, or it could be something again which has been lying dormant for a long time, that just, why haven't I been paying attention to that? Which moves us in the direction of this fertility, creativity, more abundance. Make sense, yes? So friends, we've got two oracle cards which are interesting. I don't know if they'll be helpful for us or not, but let me show them to you and let's read them together. Friends, you saw from left to right, we had the wound man, and the homunculus. Yeah? Now, the wound man reminds me of Saint Sebastian. If any of you out there are Roman Catholic, you might know this saint. Often considered one of the gay saints. Yeah, just to let you know, Saint Sebastian, one who was a young man, very young man, who was killed by arrows, by many, many arrows, tied to a tree and shot through with arrows, which might be one reason why the piercing of the phallic symbol might be the reason why he's considered one of the gay saints. Two other saints, Saint Bacchus, Sergio and Bacchus, that's another discussion entirely. Perhaps a united couple, and also saints united by the Eastern Church. Yeah, okay, so anyways, here we have the wound man, which sent me off into that idea of Saint Sebastian. And grammatically, a very strange card, right? It's not the wounded man, it's the wound man, the man of wounds. Zwoons, you say. And what do we see? We see a wounded man rising into the heavens, right? Again, making me think of Saint Sebastian, even though Saint Sebastian is almost, I've never seen a painting of Saint Sebastian that looked quite like this. But this wounded man is rising into the heavens, penetrated by various forms of weaponry. And that's true. This is not all arrows. There's a spear, there are arrows, there are swords. There are many different kinds of weaponry here. I don't know if you can see that. So although his injuries are severe, he remains alive and beyond any feelings of pain. You can see that from his expression, right? He's got that saintly glow about his head. He's got that halo aura. He's got a very peaceful looking expression on his face. And yet, the meanings for the card by the creator are things like injury, trauma, a gruesome encounter, but also the healing of those wounds. Now, the search for a cure or a remedy, a spirit that transcends mortal problems, which really does point us back towards the tarot cards, I think, from the previous spread, which are pointing to our standing in our own way. And here we get that, yes, there's injury, there's trauma, there were horrible encounters. And it's time to look for healing. It's time to look for the remedy, to transcend those problems, right? To become the wound man. And in the healing, becoming stronger and more enlightened and more I'm good at powerful. Yeah, powerful. The wounded places make us stronger when they're healed, right? And interestingly, we're looking at what looks like a guy in a medicine bottle or maybe a flower vase. This is the homunculus. The homunculus, a tiny winged man. You see him down there inside the vase, shivers inside a glass bottle slightly filled with diluted blood. Isn't this a great deck for the spooky season? Diluted blood. Flowers sprout from his head and bloom in the night sky. We had a lot of night sky in the previous spread too. Yeah, the Lenormand has 3 heavenly bodies: the sun, the moon, and the star. Kind of like tarot. 2 of those heavenly bodies appeared in the spread: the moon and the star. So here, the night sky, I think, is very, very appropriate. So while the sun and moon mark the passage of time, like the flowers, this little man will soon grow exponentially and will eventually shatter his confines. the homunculus will become a fully fledged being. So the meaning for this is our human potential. Something that seems insignificant today will become much greater tomorrow. Now, what might seem like something at a very small scale right now, it's a small scale of something larger. It's a representation of something larger as well. A small voice inside of our heads will help us. The Judgment card, right? The Ace of Swords. A small voice inside of our heads will be of benefit for us. We're in that incubation stage of getting healing so that we can do the growing that will become the new fertility, the new creativity, the largeness that we are sitting. I keep saying sitting, but I don't want to say sitting. We are inhabiting our potential, which is wonderful, but we will be much bigger tomorrow. We will burst out of the confines that we have, we have created for ourselves, and we're probably beneficial. Think of an egg. Think of a chicken egg in a shell. If that egg did not have that shell before it was ready to come out, before it was ready to burst itself out, if that butterfly did not have its cocoon before it was ready to bust out, it would be a mess of goop, right? So the chrysalis, the shell of the chrysalis, the shell of the egg is beneficial until it's time for us to break out. So yeah, maybe we've created this shell for ourselves, and maybe in that shell we've been doing a lot of the wounding, self-mutilation that we've been doing, but that we have the potential to burst free, to become greater than we are, to evolve, which is what living an intentional life is, right? Evolving into the people, becoming the people who will have there is no future. Becoming the people who have the experiences that we want to have. And when we are the people, when we have evolved into that existence, those experiences will be there. That's what living the intentional life is. We flow with the current of intention as law of attraction brings those things towards us. We become the people who have the experiences that we want to have. Or we resist. And resistance is futile because we're going to go one way or another. It's just a matter of time. If we resist and we bunch ourselves up and we tighten ourselves down and we sink to the bottom of the river, we're not going to move very quickly, but we're still going to move. All those rocks on the bed of the river are moving very, very slowly, but they move. Or we can open ourselves up, like the homunculus will, and evolve, become. Right? We have that human potential to be greater than we are right now. Not that where we are right now is a bad thing or is to be looked down upon, just like a baby. You see a baby, you don't think, what are you? Where's your money? Where's your job? What kind of car do you drive? What great art have you created? Right? It's a baby. Right now, you're the baby. I'm the baby. You big baby? So we're still evolving. We're growing. And that's a wonderful thing. And it's a wonderful thing to be a baby. Okay? Where we are right now is wonderful. It's beautiful. And it's not the end. which is what these two cards are pointing us towards. And those wounds that we had or we've experienced are what will make us to, are helping us to become the ones that we will become. And if you notice the way I transformed there, I think that's an indication of what I'm trying to say. Yeah? That those wounds that we felt are the ones that help us to become who we are becoming. So yay. Yeah? Does that make sense? And we've got so much potential this week, as pointed out by that Lenormand Spread that we read in the past and the direction that we're going now. Okay, friends? Here we go. If that makes sense, let me know in the comments below. If it does not make sense, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear, what does this say to you? What does it say to you? I'd love to know. And if you want a reading from me, my email address is below as always, thehangedmaninthemoon@gmail.com. Shoot me an email. We'll get you a reading. Tarot de Marseille, Smith Waite deck, Thoth deck, Lenormand deck. I'm ready, I think, to start reading for you with Lenormand if that's what you want. Maybe. So yeah, shoot me an email. Big spread, small spread, your choice. So friends, now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.